lie. I decided to keep this as a souvenir because this is the most disgusting thing about your country and the most rotten point of my career, perhaps. If you flip through this page, do you recognize anyone here? Maybe above the convicted terrorist killer Breivik? Maybe above Adolf Hitler? This shameless character assassination? You recognize anyone there? They wanted to blame me for a school massacre. Well, let me make something really clear to you. This guy, he wasn't even a subscriber. He liked literally one video. This video. Welcome to Sweden. 4 million views. A lot of people clicked like on this video. Inside of Sweden, outside of Sweden. In fact, even the journalists that want to claim that this video caused a school massacre, 2 years later I have to update the list of sources for the video because they ended up stealing everything I said and proved it right and gave me more sources than I had when I made the video. So, talk about being punished for being ahead of your time, huh? There are so many things I could say that would fall into the category of what's exceptionally disgusting. The fact that every mainstream paper in the country repeated this lie, this bias, and I couldn't even bring them to court for this severe slander because I find out you have to report the article within 3 months of its publishing date. So when I learned what actually can be done about 1 or 2 years later, they didn't care what happened other than, well, technically this bureaucracy says you're fucked. What's even more disgusting than your system that makes it pretty much impossible for citizens to get some kind of justice against major corporations that are trying to slander their competition is the fact that the same paper, just a year or two later, hired a blonde Swedish woman to say the exact same thing. But of course, then it's fine, right? Because it's a Swedish person saying it. It's not a filthy immigrant that doesn't want to assimilate saying it. So I guess that makes a difference, doesn't it?
Do I even have to point out how Swedish people actually relate to immigrants? Not how they talk about multiculturalism, open borders, immigration, etc., but how they actually live in relationship to those concepts. Well, take a look at this research. It only takes 4% of non-white immigrants before Swedish people start escaping and moving out of those neighborhoods. This was the case even far back in the 90s, before you had all the crime waves and the media headlines scaring everyone about those scary, angry foreigners. But this is also the case today. My point here is that the pattern persists no matter how much crime there is in your society, no matter what the media says. This is the living pattern of the culture. But what's really interesting is when we look at the other ethnicities, because that's where we really get to the core of Swedish culture. Namely, how Swedish people react to other white people. When it comes to South Europeans or Eastern Europeans, it only takes 9% before Swedish people get disgusted and leave. But of course, I need to nuance the reality of things as the assimilated foreigner that I am, so let me point out that the most tolerant of Swedes can withstand as much as 22% of white people. Other white people. 22% of other European foreigners is the most Swedes can tolerate before they start leaving a neighborhood. And they want to call everyone else Nazis and far-right extremists? Isn't that interesting? Yeah, you can probably tell from the screenshot that this is from my upcoming book. I gathered a lot of interesting sources to explain my long, hard road out of hell. One example of this is Swedish people giving me the worst reputation imaginable and conducting the most severe character assassination you could possibly think of simply because they can't afford that an immigrant is pointing out the flaws in their culture and their social systems and their absurd taxes, which are at, 50 to 60 to 70%? What is it? Is it 50% taxes or 60? Or 70. I guess it varies depending on where you move in society, huh? Another thing Swedish people can't stand is this immigrant exposing their filthy history where they helped make the Nazis very rich and very powerful. Did you know that this country made it illegal to criticize Hitler during World War II? That's how much Swedish people agreed with him. So before you call anyone else Nazi, learn what projection means. But you know what the real problem is? Your culture is all about emotional constipation. Swedish people are literally so afraid of emotion that they make other people think that Swedish is a brand of a robot species created in a Volvo factory. In Sweden, people think that emotions make you weak and unhinged and irrational. So therefore, Swedish people manage being so unhinged that their entire collective can literally change their mind overnight, all at once, and pretend like the past never happened. Just like you did when you collaborated with Nazi Germany. You like to pretend that never happened too, and use nuance as a weapon of stupidity by just nuancing everything away until it means nothing. Swedish culture dictates that language shouldn't be direct and honest and helpful and transparent enough, so they've actually perfected the art of being a sneaky nice guy stereotype and lashing out in all the wrong ways possible. These people even believe in nuancing emotion until it doesn't exist. So in Sweden, all you need to be considered a criminal or a terrorist or a political extremist is enough emotion, meaning any emotion at all. Just being angry, not even at individuals, but at systems that are flawed. When a person is angry at a system which is deeply flawed and hurts many people, the Swedish fear of emotion make them interpret that individual as an extremist, because it's just too extreme to their ethnic superiority complex that anyone would suggest that Swedish systems could be flawed. I mean, Americans are supposed to worship Swedish people. The whole world is supposed to worship how awesome their country is, so much better than yours, right? All you want people to believe is that the Swedish systems are the best systems in the world. Well, I don't think your senior citizens who built the country agree with that. But who cares, right? You don't believe in looking after family anyway. That's why you took in all those immigrants, so someone can wipe their asses. Point is, I have literally been punished my entire life in this country for having basic human emotions and a certain amount of anger that is justifiably aimed at corruption and social injustices. And the robot people want to define that as too extreme.
Oh my God!
I've certainly lived in your country too long enough to know the distance between your words and your actions. I know all about the Swedish ethnic superiority complex, and nobody can escape the fact that Swedish people are experts at advertising because they genuinely want the whole world to think that they are the first to do anything, and to sincerely believe that the Swedes are global pioneers and world citizens that are always so ahead of everyone else they just have to brag about their long list of patents. You're like a Serbian trying to claim that his people invented the fork. All you talk about is humility while you're the best at lacking it. I don't care about the fact that there are no famous Bosnians. Good! That means I don't have to live up to made-up expectations. That means I can just relax, tend to my garden, and have a glass of red wine to make my heart healthy instead of being poisoned by the hate and hypocrisy that's taken for granted in your culture. So I get it. No, sincerely, I do get it. You people just can't stand the fact that a random foreigner without a media education still managed to do a better job at journalism and public speaking than your entire media elite consisting of your most respected and adored authority figures. That's why all you could ever do is react by trying to squeeze me into a box and giving me the wrong labels, because you truly can't stand the notion of a filthy Slavic man being able to read read and report facts better than your wealthiest and most pretentious leaders. You can't stand an immigrant pointing out everything that your Swedish collective is doing wrong, so you'd rather label him a Nazi far-right extremist when he's actually much closer to a left-wing anarchist. The only horrible crime I've ever been guilty of is saying the truth while everyone else ignored it. I broke your laws of conformity, and you just can't stand that fact. So that's why I've been forced to live with the fact that everyone is too lazy to update their first impression of me. Well, I gotta tell you, the only thing that's extreme in this context is how much you like to sniff your own farts. So just to clarify once and for all, no, I don't believe in nationalism. No, I don't believe in any ethnic superiority, just because I made a few videos talking about the facts that you could never handle. I only believe that your Swedish culture is so unhealthy that it literally made it impossible for me to ever be included in any meaningful way in any social setting, and therefore I guess I just lashed out and wanted to provoke people because of their stupidity.
Yeah, in America I would be a liberal. In Sweden I'm a far-right extremist. Interesting how that works.
Even now that every single mainstream media sounds worse than me, more critical towards immigration than I ever was, even now that all of your political parties sound way more anti-migration than I ever was, you still don't want to apologize and take back your filthy label. I'm not anything you'd like to think that I am in order to make life more comfortable for yourself and enhance your own weakness in character and judgment. During my time in Sweden, my best friends have been Arabs and Africans. And guess what? They can take a joke better than you can take a dick, you whiny white savior liberals. Don't forget to sign up to my official website so you can be notified when my book is released, covering this topic and many, many more that have never made it into videos. Both the Swedish version and the English version will come out this year whenever I manage to raise funds and time outside of this job. And I can promise you that it will be worth the wait.
You know what will make an angry foreigner a scared foreigner is the fact that I told the truth when it wasn't popular, and all you did was get pissed with me. Swedish people don't like the truth, and their journalists like it even less, because it makes the country look bad. How are Americans gonna keep being jealous of us if we admit that we're not perfect? Oh, the woes of the Ubermensch. Now, things have changed so much that even the major old audience I used to have is bored with me because everyone sounds like you. I can get the same thing with better production value somewhere else. Yeah, well, that's kind of what I find disgusting. Immigration critique has become so mainstream that our current mainstream media doesn't sound any different than what used to be considered alternative media Nazi hate sites with no press ethics. They're indistinguishable from another. Is that the morals you were carrying this entire time, you champagne socialists? The fact that you can flip-flop that hard, that's what makes me scared. Because that means that your future consists of the same kind of ethno-nationalism you've been trying to suppress. That's gonna become the new political correctness. Now, instead of being called a racist, everyone calls you Sverigefientlig. Svenskfientlig. The major nationalist conservative party we have even want to make it illegal to be too critical of Swedish people. Really. Sadly, I don't think that's going to help the Swedish people that have been left behind by Swedish people and their systems. In fact, I can tell you why society is only going to get worse and worse and more violent, but you're going to have to buy my book to find that out, because I'm just a pointless grifter like everyone else. Just not an extremist.